Hey guys, it's Charlie. So, I've tried filming this a few times. It's really, when you are not in the habit of making videos, it's weird to do. So, anyway, this video is going to be about, I guess, eco-witchcraft. That's what I'm calling it, eco-witchcraft. And basically like where I'm led to practice, or where I've been led to practice as a witch and as a spiritual person the last few years, like kind of that journey into a different way to practice. So that's what today's video is going to be about. Before I get into that, I just wanted to address one thing. Okay, so when I film videos and then I edit them and then I upload them, I never watch them again. So I don't like go back and watch my old videos. So I don't know if I mentioned this or not in my first video, but my first video back. But one of you had made a comment on one of the videos that we used to be connected on Facebook and now we're not because I deleted you. And yes, for anyone watching who thought the same thing and didn't verbalize it, I did delete you, most likely. But it's nothing personal, I promise. I deleted pretty much everyone who wasn't family or people I didn't know from having spent time with them in real life. Gone from, I just deleted them. I would have deleted Facebook altogether if it weren't for years and years of pictures and videos that I want to retain access to, because I hate Facebook. I think Facebook is the bowels of social media. The energy and the vibe on Facebook is gross. So the only reason that I'm on Facebook is A, to maintain the pictures and videos and memories that I've made over the years and shared through Facebook, and B, access to the groups, like hobby groups. So I'm in like some gardening groups and like certain like interior design groups. I'm in like stuff like that. Not that interior design is like a huge hobby of mine, but I have a certain style, so I'm in those groups for inspiration for my house. So yeah, that's why I am still on Facebook. But it's not my preferred social media. My preferred social platform is Instagram. So I'm pretty active on there. Not so much with the posts, but I post a lot of stories. So you can find me on Instagram if you want. Charlie Says Go. My profile is private. I had a stalker situation a few years ago, and all of my socials became private when that happened. So if you try to follow me on Instagram, just send me a message letting me know who you are from YouTube so that I add you, like I approve your follow request or whatever. There's like 80 in there right now, and I don't know who any of them are, so I just have been too lazy to go in and decline all of them. But yeah, followers is not, that's not like my, I really couldn't give two shits how many followers or lack thereof I have. So all my shit's private. I have noticed as I've gotten older, I've gotten kind of more and more introverted and a little bit more protective of my privacy. So that's been really interesting. Anyway, I digress. Now into the actual topic of the video itself. So eco-witchcraft, I guess, is what I'm calling it. Those of you who've been following me, I need to work on speaking more slowly. Those of you who have been following me for like a long time, you may remember way many years ago, like maybe like 2010. It was when I was still living in my first apartment that I was living in when I started making videos. I had a series called the Green Living series, and it was all about like different like tips and tutorials on green living. Like how to make your own face wash and how to make your own shampoo and how to compost and like stuff like that. Just about like, you know, clean stuff and like earth-friendly shit. So I've always been like that. I grew up in a bunch of places, but I spent a big part of my childhood living in the country, spending time with nature and animals. I've always been into all of that stuff. And that's just kind of I guess, natural to me in my practice. So I guess what this video is going to be about is kind of, I don't know, talking about the importance of that and the I guess, realization that I've had as I've gotten older and just kind of matured a little bit into my practice, and because I've been practicing over 20 years at this point, you guys. Isn't that fucking wild? Like, that just blows my mind. That's wild. So, yeah, it was a few years ago. I was listening to a podcast, and I don't remember what the topic of the podcast was about, but there was one thing that stuck out to me, and that was that one of the hosts said, if you are not working magic for your community, you're really just cosplaying on the internet. And I know that that's a bit inflammatory. I maybe wouldn't phrase it that way. Well, I might, but it hit home. I was like, wow, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I don't follow a ton of witches on social media, so I haven't really kept up with trends or topics or anything like that are circulating in the community. But from what I see from the peripheral, because I've kind of stepped back, and instead of being so laser focused on I am a witch and this is my identity, I've stepped back and I embrace the different facets of myself that exist outside of and complementary to witchcraft and spirituality. So when I'm interacting with people, the people that I'm choosing to interact with now are not 100% in the spiritual realm or the pagan realm or the witch realm, which is different than it was, say, 6 or 7 years ago, when the vast majority of my online interactions were with other witches. So that's been a really interesting thing, because I think it can be simultaneously fulfilling and enriching and also dangerous, existing in an echo chamber where the vast majority of the people that you interact with are people who have the same belief system as you or have the same thoughts and worldview as you. So kind of stepping outside of that and interacting more with people who are still skeptical of witchcraft, or they're like, okay, you're fucking nuts, that's been kind of a welcomed thing, because there aren't, these, I see it still from time to time in Facebook groups, of course, where the one person who's the leader of the group, they say something, and all of the other people are like, and there's this sort of follow the leader type thing. And when you can kind of step out of that and get out of that space where it's just sort of this big echo chamber, those sort of interactions don't happen as often anymore, because I don't know, it's difficult to describe unless you've been in one and then left, and then you're looking back into it from the outside. But what I've noticed from this, the outskirts, kind of looking in and observing on the few that I see here and there that pop up with hashtags that I follow. So not necessarily witches that I follow personally, but they might hashtag one of their posts as Witchcraft, which is one that I follow on Instagram. And then I see it in my feed. And there's a couple things that I've noticed in this kind of distanced observing. The first being, there's a lot of focus on material goods, the fancy altars and the expensive tools and the kind of perfectly curated spaces, and they're beautiful and they're definitely appealing, but there's kind of an inaccessibility to them in a way, I don't know, it's a keeping up with the Joneses thing. It's basically that to witchcraft is what all of the latergram travel posts, vacation pics are to an influencer's account, right? So all of these kind of just polished, I don't know, curated grids on Instagram And like I said, they're extremely beautiful, but there's this kind of preoccupation, it seems, just from the observation. It may not even be, that just may just be my perception, but this preoccupation with kind of the material, and who has the prettiest tools and the prettiest, enter any material item, or the most. Like the stuff that I see is just like, bam, it's like all cluttered with a bunch of stuff, and I'm like, holy shit. Like, how do you like maneuver in there? How are you spelling in this like mass of like stuff? So that's the one thing. But then the other is seeing, usually I would guess probably like ads, like advertisements, or just posts in general about, and this part I've tried to think of a way to choose a phrase that sounds less judgmental. I assure you it's not intended to be judgmental, but it's just the phrase that best describes what I'm talking about, and that is self-serving magic. So magic that's intended like specifically to benefit the practitioner. So like different manifestation magic, or I'm doing this really powerful abundance thing, or this prosperity thing, or it usually tends to be kind of in those realms. And that's all great. Like, that's fucking awesome. Keep doing those things. But I don't see as many, and this might just be because I'm not following the right fucking hashtags, so if you know what they are, let me know, please. I'm not seeing as many, like, practitioners doing magic for, like, humanity and, like, world peace and healing the earth, you know? And that's the kind of shit that's where my practice has gone. So I guess lead by example is what I'm going to try to do here. I would say, at this point in my practice, maybe 10, maybe 15, if I'm being generous, % of my magic is done to benefit myself solely. Actually, if it's myself solely, it's even less than that. But to benefit like myself and like my family, both my immediate, like in my household family, and then my, you know, like my family that doesn't live in the same house. The rest is done for ecology and the environment, and humanitarian work for like the humanitarian crisis that's happening right now in Afghanistan. There's a humanitarian crisis in Yemen and in Syria. Those have been going on for years. Things like that. The Amazon rainforest, I believe, is still burning. It was in headlines in 2019, I believe. To my knowledge, I believe it's still on fire. So I do magic for that. Climate change is exacerbating these natural disasters and making them even more intensified. So kind of working magic for those things. But I don't stop at just magic. I take practical action too. So, for instance, one of the things that our family does is we sponsor 2 kids. One is a little girl in Sri Lanka, and the other is a little boy in the Philippines. And we send money to them every month. It's one of those like SaveTheChildren.org. I think it's .org, pretty sure. The charity Save the Children, where you sponsor a child and then the money goes to their community and pools with other donors' money, and then they're able to buy things like school supplies and build things like safe structures, or have access to clean water and start digging wells, and like helping the communities become more self-sufficient over the course of the however many years these organizations are kind of occupying the area and providing their assistance to them. So like practical things like that. And that's kind of, I guess, what I wanted to talk about in this video. We're just a few, like that's one of the things that I do from a humanitarian standpoint, as well as doing a lot of meditation on healing and compassion and peace and universal love. And then from an environmental standpoint, doing things like obviously recycling. That's like bare minimum. If you aren't doing that, that's a small thing you can start doing if you really do want to give back to the earth or make a difference. So that, as well as writing my legislators and volunteering with local and maybe more regional ecological organizations. So, for instance, on Lake Michigan, there's a particular family in the area that's very well known, wealthy. It's actually, okay, so the Kohler family. So you've probably heard of like the bold look of Kohler, right? They make like bathroom faucets and sinks and kitchen sinks and toilets and bathtubs and like all the bathroom kitchen stuff. They also own golf courses, and just as an instance, for instance, they are building a golf course on ground that should be protected. They're trying to build a golf course, and they've been permitted to build a golf course, and this is after like 8 years of court cases involving a local ecological group that's trying to preserve the area. But they've been granted a permit to build this massive golf course on top of these wetlands that happen to be also Native American burial grounds, so that's a whole other thing. Clearing out mature old growth beach forests, filling in some of the wetlands, using dangerous chemicals that can leach into the soil and into the wells of the local community that surrounds these wetlands in order to manicure their golf courses, and completely disrupting like migratory bird patterns, which is like stuff like this, right? So getting involved with organizations that are fighting against those things. That's the shit that I do. And then there's also smaller things that I'm doing kind of like in my household, which is we have, if any of you are familiar with like tower gardens, there is one called the Tower Garden, like that's the name of it. We have one called the Lettuce Grow Farm Stand, which is a hydroponic system, and it's incredible. I highly recommend it. I don't get paid to tell you about it. I just think it's fucking awesome. But that we have been using for over a year, and I have not had to buy spinach, kale, or any form of lettuce or chives or bunching onions in over a year, because I just grow it all myself in my basement on this hydroponic farm stand that is like, it grows with these UV lights that we have, with the grow lights that we have down there. So I have fresh produce year-round that doesn't lose 30% of its nutrients within the first 3 days when it's being shipped from the farm to the grocery store. I just go down when I want a salad, I cut off some salad, I bring it upstairs and I eat it, and it's like the freshest ever, and it tastes so fucking good. So that's one thing I'm doing. Another, and this is something I've done since we lived in Madison, is through my electric company, I power my entire house on wind and solar energy. If you have an apartment or a house and you use the electric company for your electric, most electric companies, if you either go to their website or call them, they will have a renewables program that you can opt into. It's slightly more expensive on ours per kilowatt, not per kilowatt, but based on our kilowatt hours. We spend to power our home on 100% renewable. It's an extra like $5 to $10 a month, depending on the month. So it's like minuscule and worth every penny, if you ask me. So I do that, and then I just bought my first electric vehicle, which I'm super pumped about. It's a 2020 Nissan Leaf, and I charged at home in an outlet that I could plug my toaster into. Like, it's just a standard outlet. I would like to upgrade to a level 2 charging station soon. There are some really good rebates through the electric company for that eco upgrade. So that may be something I do in the future. But for now, I just plug it into the wall in my garage. It comes with an adapter, and I charge it, and I drive it. And it's 0 tailpipe emissions. I'm saving like $90 a month in gas. I don't ever have to do oil changes again. I don't have a check engine light to worry about because I don't have an engine, I have a battery. It's really awesome. So, yeah, there's just like things like that. So that's the stuff that kind of gets me going. And I guess that's what I wanted this video to be about, was to, I don't know, if you weren't thinking about that, weren't thinking about like, okay, man, I'm like a fucking badass, powerful witch. How can I use my knowledge and skills like to better more than just like myself and my friends and my family? How can I extend this out and be a force of good in the world as a whole? Not just from a magical standpoint, but also from a practical standpoint. Like, how can I put my money where my mouth is we talk all the time as witches, many of us, maybe not even most of us anymore. I know that witchcraft in general is not just specifically like, you can be a witch and not be spiritual. You can be a witch and not, you can be a witch and atheist. Like, it's a craft. But many witches tend to be people who are also pagan in some form, or earth-based in some form. Put your money where your mouth is, you know? Are you gonna, like, actually take care of the planet? Like, stand up and do some fucking sweet shit to, like, help the planet? So that's kind of, I guess, what I wanted to talk about today, was just little things like that you can do, you know? Reducing waste, recycling. We recycle everything that can possibly be recycled is recycled here. Composting is another way to reduce waste to the landfill, and then you're left with this beautiful black rich soil that you can use for planting in your garden, whether it's a traditional garden or a container garden. And the really cool thing about that is, because you're creating the soil yourself, you can be putting your magic into it. So not only do you have this really rich black fertile soil, but it's also been imbued with magic. Like, there's so many fucking sweet things you can do with magic and taking practical action to, like, I don't know. I know I sound like a crazy hippie right now, but that's just who I am. And when I heard that podcast, or that particular part of that podcast a few years ago, it made me stop and be like, okay, how can I responsibly give back, you know? How can I have this experience extend and have the benefit extend further than just myself and my family? So yeah, I founded Witches Healing the Earth, and that's where kind of that whole thing sort of takes shape. But even people who don't want to be involved with Witches Healing the Earth, like, there's still small things that you can do. And then you move to the bigger things when you become more fucking passionate about it. Like, Nozomi wants to be either a conservationist or an ecologist when she grows up, which I'm, like, super supportive of. So we practiced writing letters to our county supervisors and our alderperson. She wrote a letter to her principal in 5th grade, unprompted. She did this all by herself, talking about how she wanted to start a committee that would encourage kids to pick up litter when they saw it, and encourage kids not to litter, and basically just being responsible for that land that the school is on. And I was, like, so proud. So just, like, little things like that, you know? Anyway, I hope that you guys are doing well, and that this video finds you well. I don't know when the next time my update will be, but I like this whole flow of, like, when I fucking feel like it, I will make a video. And yeah, so if you have any, like, questions or anything like that, just let me know in the comments. I check them here and there, not, like, super frequently or anything, but yeah. And if you want to follow me on Instagram, just please also send a message along, just so I know who you are. And I will talk to you guys all soon. Much love.